Anyway, good evening, everyone.
Evening.
Welcome to the Community and Environment Committee of Bingham Town Council. It's lovely to see you all. Are there any apologies under item 1?
We're all present.
Lovely.
Present.
Any under item 2 receive any declarations of interest? No. Okay, item 3. To sign the minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of February, which seems ages ago, doesn't it?
I'll move, Madam Chairman.
Seconded.
I'll second it. All right.
Thank you.
Can we
well, I
take
suppose
a
I
vote on
virtually
that,
signed them,
if
do
that's
I?
okay? Yeah. Do you want to vote on that, Sharon?
Yes, please.
Okay. Councillor John Stockwood.
Agree. Agree.
Councillor Andrew Shelton.
Agree.
Councillor Jane Best.
I've got my arm up, yes.
Councillor Stapleton.
Yes.
Councillor Lewis.
Yes.
And Councillor Maureen Stockwood.
Yes, agreed.
Thank you, councillors.
I think Tony is waiting in the lobby. It's on my screen.
Oh, yes, I've got that too.
Okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Tony.
Hi there.
So we move on to item 4, which is to receive an update on outstanding decisions and consider further actions. And I wish at this point to thank John for providing us with all the background information sent today. And we shall have to
Madam Chair, may I
have
speak?
you all had these this afternoon? Well, later on this morning.
Well,
We've
I'll
had
speak
correct
to them anyway,
minutes.
Madam Chair,
Right.
yeah?
Yeah. John, did you want, John Stockwood, did you want to say something?
Yes, please.
Thank
So, committee throughout the year, the committee has made decisions previously. As we come to the end of the annual cycle, we look at the decisions that we've made and the progress that is being made to implement them. I've written down some brief notes on some of the things that I'm aware of, and perhaps other people can update us on any other existing decision of the committee that is not yet completed. So regarding separating the summer and winter event budgets, that's on the agenda as Christmas fair preparations. Wildfire planting, I've seen pictures on Facebook that Friends of Linear Park have planted wildflowers under the twinning sign. CCTV, the committee has set out its requirements for updating the system. A town news item regarding parking on yellow lines. The recent town news was filled with the annual council statement of activities. This item can be added to a future edition. The town guide, as I understand it, now delivered and published on the website. The Great British Spring Clean 2020 has been rescheduled to September, so we can continue to make efforts to try and promote that at the right time. We did ask that the maintainer of the defibrillator submit a grant application for maintenance supplies, but I don't believe that they have, but perhaps Clerk or Deputy Clerk can update us on that. We also asked that a Happy to Chat bench in the Market Square have a plaque on it. I think Andrew was going to talk to the Friends of Linear Park about Two Till Activities Week and whether the Friends of Linear Park had any suggestions for activities. We've asked for progress on Operation London Bridge, and so if there's any details of that to discuss, it could be discussed in the confidential business. Those are the points that I'm aware of, and to start the ball rolling, I was just making a point of keeping on the agenda our existing decisions and asking for updates on how they are progressing. So that was the point of this one, Madam Chair. I move that we note any updates that are given, and committee can put forward any actions that are required to address problems that preventing the decisions being implemented. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we've got a fairly comprehensive agenda this evening. So if has anyone any comments on what's just been said, please?
Madam Chairman, Linear Park, we've got an email meeting tomorrow night. I'll chase up any answers regarding the item mentioned by Councillor Stockwood.
Thank you very much. Andrew?
Councillor Stockwood, Deputy Clerk, I can update on the defibrillator. We have asked that a grant application is filled in if they want to receive monies from the council, but that as yet is still outstanding. We haven't received a response from them. So,
okay, thank you, and Andrew. So I'm just ticking them off on my list. Any further comments?
I've got a comment in terms of the wildflower planting. The ground staff haven't made any headway with an area in the cemetery as yet. There's just not been the manpower to be able to progress that. CCTV, we've done a little bit of work on that, but that is a project in itself. We have been successful in receiving a grant for that, which we got before the year end. In terms of the town news item regarding parking on yellow lines, I do believe something went in to the town guide, but I'd need to double check that, but I'm fairly sure it did. Happy to chat bench in the Market Square. We did approach RBC, who come back to us, if you recall, and said, we don't really want to put a plaque on there, but you could put something up there if you nominated a bench, and it was a request that we went to the WI to ask them if it was okay with them to use that bench. That hasn't happened yet. And with regard to Operation London Bridge, we'll pursue the items that need to be purchased and discuss that accordingly.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that update. Do we need a vote, or we're just noting those items, aren't we?
Yes, please.
Yes. Right. Okay, noted. So we move to item 5, which is to receive an update on actions taken in response to the COVID-19 pandemic and consider further actions.
Madam Chair, may I speak?
Yes, please do.
Thank you very much. So the committee has terms of reference, and some things have happened that I'm aware of that relating to the pandemic, and so I think we note the updates that we're about to receive and resolve if we need to take any further action. So the ones I'm aware of are the neighbourhood plan. I think the council has received a letter from the neighbourhood plan steering committee stating they are postponing progress. I think the police priority setting group is postponed. And I can see that the website is being regularly updated with links to official advice and local information. We've been told that the bins are being emptied, the summer fair is cancelled. Those are the points I would be aware of. So if there's any other actions that's been specifically taken in relation to the pandemic, we'll be updating the committee on what's been occurring regarding its terms of reference. Thank you. But I move that we note any updates.
Thank you. Any comments from anyone else, please?
Yes, I could speak on the work that we've been doing with the community groups following the minutes that are titled the Zoom call. I spoke following that meeting that we had. I spoke with Bingham Helping Hands representatives in terms of what was agreed. I spoke to them about the leafleting, and the response that's come back is they've decided they're not going to leaflet at this moment in time. So that's on hold. I've also spoken with the Bingham Fire Service because they had a list of vulnerable residents. And on the call that we had, there was concern that there were invisible, vulnerable people that Bingham Helping Hands were not able to seek out. And of course, that led to a whole discussion about who and what is a vulnerable person. I contacted the fire service at Bingham because I know they do have a vulnerable list, and I was, asking, were they contacting? So they've covered that off. So that's an avenue covered, and they're happy to pursue that. In terms of checking with local churches and organisations to find out if they can identify any vulnerable people, an email has gone out in regard to that. I've spoken with Bingham Helping Hands about guaranteeing the expenditure for volunteers who have taken the financial hit on a temporary basis for resident shopping, and we're putting a system in place around that. We've also sent out an email to the school officers to see if we can identify potentially any vulnerable children or any young people who may need some help and support, and be able to signpost them accordingly, and working with the schools around that. And then there was an action to consider issuing a press release to promote the allocation of the 25,000, and we had a response from Councillor Purdue Haran on that this morning. So that is an update with regard to the Zoom call.
Thank you. Super. Any further comments from anyone? Well, we're asked to note the updates of this again, and thank you very much for the actions taken. So moving to item 6, to consider the recognition of key workers and volunteers during the COVID-19 pandemic. I understand we've had a letter, Councillor Stockwood.
Yes, other Councillor Stockwood. If I may speak, we've had some correspondence from a member of the community suggesting that the work of the NHS, carers and volunteers, especially Bingham Helping Hands, during the pandemic is acknowledged. We're currently in a position whereby Bingham Community Events Group has been given a grant of £2,000 from the Town Council for a VE Day event. This is not proceeding in the form that I think we funded, but we welcome the things that are going ahead. The events planned for VE Day may be relocated to VJ Day event in August. However, this may also not proceed due to social distancing and the manner in which things are phased in. An additional event to thank the NHS carers and volunteers at the end of the pandemic could be considered, but the end of the pandemic is not known, and current lockdown arrangements may be phased out and also phased back in, depending on how, apparently it's the R number that's very important. The Town Council budget includes £1,000 for other events. So taking those facts into consideration, I'm suggesting that the committee resolves that the Council works with the Bingham Community Events Group to organise an additional event to thank the NHS carers and volunteers, to be held when people of all ages can participate, and that the additional event is funded by Bingham Community Events Group using unspent funds from the previously given grant for VE Day and funds from the Town Council other events budget. So I start the ball rolling on this discussion with those comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments or ideas from people on this? I can't see
Hello.
anybody. Hello.
Hi, it's Vivian.
Hello, Viv.
Hi, Viv.
Hi, guys. How you doing? Everybody coping all right? Everybody staying safe?
Yes, thank you very much.
Good. Glad to
Hi,
hear
Viv.
that. So are we. Somebody had a good idea on Facebook. Decorate your houses and your street red, white and blue, and have a party afterwards. Social distancing included, of course.
Madam Chair, for information, there is a lot of virtual things going on on VE Day, but the event that we funded was some specific actions in the Market Square which will not be going ahead. If you look on the Bingham Community Events Facebook page, there will be various things broadcast on the day, and there are also national events for VE Day, and everybody can participate by decorating their houses red, white and blue. But this agenda item is about having an additional event whereby we're not doing the summer fair this year, but there may be a point later on in the year where we can have an additional event to thank those who have done so much to support the community, in particularly the shielded. So that's what this agenda item is particularly about. Thank you.
Cheers.
Yeah. Well, our next meeting is in June, and perhaps things will have eased off a little by then. So it will be good if we can bring along ideas for how we could hold an event to mark the help and the community spirit that's existed in this difficult time. So we have to, we wish to resolve that the council works with the Bingham Community Events Group to organise an additional event to thank the NHS, carers and volunteers to be held when people of all ages can participate. And two, resolve that the additional event is funded by Bingham Community Events Group using unspent funds from the previously given grant for the VE Day event and funds from the Town Council other events budget. I think we will need a seconder for this, and John moved it, John Stockwood moved it, and we will also be taking a vote on this.
I'll
Can I
second
second
it,
it,
Maureen,
please?
if that's all right.
Thank you.
Councillor Leach, you're not on the committee, so I'll need somebody else.
Oh, sorry.
Councillor Lewis spoke.
Right.
Yes, I did. I'd like to second it.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. We can move to a vote on that, please. Councillor John Stockwood,
Agree.
Councillor Shelton,
Agree.
Councillor Best,
Agree.
Councillor Stapleton,
Agreed.
Councillor Lewis,
Agreed.
and Councillor Maureen Stockwood.
Agreed.
Thank you, councillors.
Sorry, I'll just mute a second till my phone goes.
The next item appears to be musical. Okay, item 7. You may not have heard of this, but to consider supporting Silver Sunday events in Bingham on the 4th of October 2020. I don't know whether you've had the chance to look at the link, but it's a national day to pause and think about older people and celebrate their contribution to society. Events are held to draw attention to the problem of loneliness amongst old people and provide an opportunity to bring generations together. Older people applies to anyone who identifies as an older person, and the events welcome people of all ages. More information is online. You were sent the link today, and it's quite informative about the sort of things you can do. So I personally think this is a good idea and wanted it on the agenda this evening.
Councillor Mrs. Stockwood, can I speak? Councillor John Stockwood.
Thank you.
Okay. So we are looking as a committee to support more events organised by the community rather than just the council doing everything. And we also resolved to support the Great British Spring Clean, and we also have things such as the Armed Forces Covenant and Plastic Free Communities. So we're building up a range of causes, and it's, you know, it's about how we can show that we support these things without us having to put on an event for every single one, or try and do something for each thing. So one way forward would be to promote each of these campaigns has days of action where they are promoting their works, and we could promote that day on the council website, on the town news when published, and encourage members of the community to organise events linked to the relevant campaign. So we did decide in 2018 we wanted to see more of that community events coming forward, but that's not really happening, perhaps because there is a cost associated with putting on a small event, and perhaps something we could ask the Policy and Resources Committee to look again at its grants policy to see if small grants can be made available to make help this increase in community events that the council wants to see. So I am moving that we promote the Silver Sunday on the 4th of October 2020 via the council website, social media and other publications, encouraging the Bingham community to organise Silver Sunday events. I also recommend that we ask the Policy and Resources Committee that the grants policy be updated to enable small grants to community events related to the Town Council's supported causes, and to develop a calendar of annual campaign days related to the Town Council supported causes so that they can be promoted each day. So perhaps we raise a flag on Armed Forces Day, we promote Plastic Free Bingham at the right time, or just put a news item out on our website or our media and saying, look, this is a worthy cause, let's get the voice out. These are things that the council is supporting. Other councils change the lighting on their building or put up a flag, but it's not about us taking on board more and more events and things that we organise ourselves, but promoting these causes as things that we want to see happen within our community, but encouraging the community to themselves to come forward and put stuff on. So that was the gist of hopefully Silver Sunday can be one of those things that we do look at. Silver Sunday is particularly looking at loneliness among old people, and I know that the Borough Council is looking to promote its campaign against loneliness of people of all ages at its parish forums. But this is particularly for older people. We're encouraging people to join in and organise events for older people. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you raise your hand, Councillor Stapleton? Are you seconding that?
I'm reading
I'll
that,
second that.
definitely.
Right.
I'll second that. Sorry.
Can't hear you, Wayne.
I'll second that.
Thank you very much. Any further comments on that? People seem to be in general agreement. So
Yes, may I speak, please, Madam Chairman?
Thank you. Yes, please, John.
This is something. This is something that's obviously going to be of interest to U3A. In particular, we've been running a campaign for upwards of 2 years now, called Learning Not Lonely. So it is something that we will very likely want to support, particularly as all of our activities, including our 20th anniversary celebrations, all going down the plug hole. So that's why I shall be voting for this motion.
Thank you very much. Any further comments from anyone?
Hello, Maureen.
Over.
Like John, I support it, my love. I think it's a brilliant idea, even though I can't vote for it.
Okay. Thank you. Well, we will go to the vote now. It's been proposed and seconded, those 3 points that you sent out earlier. All those in, would you like to say? Reverting to
Thank you. Okay, so we're moving to the vote. So Councillor John Stockwood,
Agree.
Councillor Andrew Shelton,
Agree.
Councillor Jane Best,
Agree.
Councillor Stapleton,
Agree.
Councillor Lewis,
Agree.
and Councillor Maureen Stockwood.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Right, we move to item 8, which is to consider the Christmas lighting display. And I want to thank those that have so far participated in the meetings we've had, which, you know, we do provide seasonal lighting displays in the town centre. And the current 3-year contract is due to end, and quotes have been sought for a new scheme. Each company offering to provide a quote has been given the opportunity of meeting the chair of the committee, myself, the mayor, representative from Bingham Town Community Events, and staff on site in the marketplace. We've heard from the deputy clerk this week that this item will be updated at the committee, that we still have 2 quotations in for the new 3-year contracts, and that we have received contact from our current supplier. They are keen to assist councils, and rather than a 3-year contract, they have asked for the opportunity to extend the contract for this year only, with a site visit, first to see what they can offer on improvements. There was some criticism of last year. There's also the option of rearranging the supplier that cancelled the site meeting earlier this year for another quote, so we could move ahead with that. The council usually seeks 3 quotes, and the budget, the annual budget at the moment is £8,000 for the Christmas lights. So, Joe, you've been at these meetings, have you?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Stockwood. Yes, the only thing that's tricky with Christmas lighting, which I just sort of wanted to run past the committee, rather than it being for an actual item to purchase, it becomes about sort of artistic interpretation of what the lighting companies want in the centre. So it may well be, with committee's permission, that some of the ones that have quoted as well, we may go back to discuss some of the ideas, if the committee are happy for the chair and the mayor to work with me on that, because these are the kind of things where, you know, we may like most of the scheme, but there may be items in there that we prefer on another, which we can negotiate with them. And then obviously our current supplier, we had some issues with the installation last year. They're obviously very aware of that. They've had a lot of staff leave, so they're also looking to try and win our trust back by letting them come back this year. So there is the difficulty, depending on what happens moving forward with a new supplier coming in, of getting electrics and different things sorted. So that's why the 3 options on the table, if the committee can leave it as wide as possible, so that hopefully by June we'll have a better idea of what's happening so far in the country and what people can offer us, so the committee can make the best decision for this year.
Thank you. Any comments from others?
Madam Chair, Councillor Stockwood.
The councillor would go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to move then that we, the chair of the committee, the mayor, a representative of Bingham Community Events and staff, meet with the current supplier on site in a socially distanced way, and perhaps also work with quote suppliers regarding their quotes. Resolve and to rearrange the meeting with the suppliers not yet supplied a quote, and that all quotes available, all information we have, be brought back to the next committee meeting in June for a decision to be made on the lighting displays. So I'd like to move that, please. Oh, there's a
Thank you.
guess.
Have a seconder for that.
I'll second that, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. And was it Councillor Shelton?
It was, yeah.
Yes, sorry.
Hi, sorry, I'm a bit late to the meeting.
Oh, evening, Elizabeth.
Yes.
Evening
Hello,
all, sorry I'm late and interrupting.
Evening, Liz.
Right. Okay, would you mute for the time being then, Elizabeth? So we can go to the vote on this, please.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, councillors, we move to the vote. Councillor John Stockwood,
Agree.
Councillor Shelton,
Agree.
Councillor Best,
Agreed.
Councillor Stapleton,
Agreed.
Councillor John Lewis,
Agreed.
and Councillor Maureen Stockwood.
Agreed.
Thank you, councillors.
Thank you very much. Item 9, to consider preparations for the Christmas fair. There's 2 parts, A and B, and I'd be grateful if Councillor John Stockwood could take us through this. He has been negotiating and well, not negotiating, talking with the Bingham Community Events Group.
Excellent.
Please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So council did make a decision that we try at the last virtual full council that we work with Bingham Community Events Group on the Christmas fair, and there's a document that's being updated by the Deputy Clerk describing each organisation's responsibilities. We did meet the Chair of Committee, staff, Bingham Community Event representative on 10th of March, I recall, and we discussed feedback from the 2019 fair and future arrangements. Some steps have been taken with regards to the future general arrangements, a little bit more detail about pre-event planning and getting feedback from people after the event to see how things went. There's also some additional detail about who does what around the Christmas tree, and that the community events group will continue with the to arrange the local business support in the banner, and some improvements into the way the grotto works. They were all set out in a document written by the Deputy Clerk, or it's an update to the previous document that's been agreed by council. And each of the changes is included in the email that I sent out earlier today. With regards to future arrangements, there's a proposed way forward about the community events group taking more responsibility in future years, but we are where we are with the joint working for this year. And there's also an additional request regarding leaving some things or supporting some things to carry over into an event in the next day. So the town council is being asked to allow stalls to remain in the market square for the following day, and there's a request there to help with the funding of the additional costs, the PA and stage for the following day. But all other aspects of the event would be managed on the Saturday, would be Bingham Community Events responsibility, and we would then just take away the stalls at the end of the day. Doing that would mean that our staff have a set number of hours that they want to work on the Friday and Saturday, and it's if one employee is doing more on a Saturday than they would normally do, then they would do less on a Friday, which means there's a reduction in the amount of support for manning road closures on the Friday, in order to make sure the stalls are removed on the Saturday if that goes ahead. So the current budget arrangements is we're in budget because we haven't spent so much on the summer fair, but we're also down because we've not sold so much sponsorship this year. So there's a little bit, we've got some figures that were distributed in that document regarding last year's costs, and so we can use those as a base for the moving forward, plus the additional items that we could support using some of the money from the summer fair budget, or well, some of the budget that's available in that joint Christmas and summer fair budget that was set at the full council when we set the budget, which is now supposed to be separated into two separate things, but it's not quite yet been done that. So I'm asking that we resolve to agree the updates to the general arrangements and the proposed future arrangements as recorded in the Christmas Fair 2020 document, allow stalls to remain from Friday and to fund the stage and PA for a Bingham Community Events organised event on the following day, that the budget for the Christmas Fair be based on the 2019 costs plus the costs of additional stage, PA and any stall management costs for the following day, and then we get a further report on more specifics of the budget details be provided to the June committee meeting. There's a lot there, but it's taking on board the previous agreement we had for last year, which went to full council, and then just trying to improve it a bit and perhaps add in a bit more because we've not done a summer event for this year. And so it's about a process of taking on board feedback and trying to make it a little bit better of how we work together for this year. And so I move those points and open up the discussion, if I may. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody wish to second that?
I'll second it.
Thank you. And I'm not sure about suspending standard orders. I see Elizabeth is with us. Had you anything further to tell us, Elizabeth?
Obviously, I know you're going to work at present on your budget for 2019. I think that's what you said, John.
Mm-hmm.
I have had a quote in for the stage for use, but I have today late on got a quote for the sound, which I'll forward on to you. Some of the costs for your sound have went up slightly, I think, but I think
Right.
I'm looking at it inclusive of VAT, so it may be the same. I'm not sure, but I will send that over, so there may be a little bit of difference in that, which might increase your costs against last year's.
Well, Madam Chair, point of information. I think we're in a very flexible or a fluid situation with regards to events at the moment. It's very difficult to know if we'll ever be able to meet together as a community, but we have to keep hoping that because of the changes to the summer fair and the suggestions for additional events for the end of the pandemic celebration end event sort of thing, and events being cancelled. Budget situation's a bit fluid. I apologise for that, but
No, it's fine. I just wanted to know that the costs.
Yeah.
Obviously, how you work your budget, you don't go out and obtain your costs first. You set a budget and then try to work within that budget. But if you don't know what your costs are going to be first within a budget, then your budget might not obviously go to plan because your costs are going to be more. So I was just really letting you know that might be the case. I know it won't affect you that much this year because events have been cancelled and even Christmas Fair may be cancelled. None of us know, but we have to just try and keep planning so that when we do come out of this, there's something for the community and the businesses to pull together and enjoy, hopefully.
Of course.
Thank you. Okay, well, it's been, those 4 points have been moved and seconded. So we need a vote on those, please.
Okay. Councillor John Stockwood,
Agree.
Councillor Shelton,
Agree.
Councillor Best,
Agreed.
Councillor Stapleton,
Agreed.
Councillor Lewis,
Agreed.
and Councillor Maureen Stockwood.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 9B is to note the grant
Councillor
support.
Stockwood, can I just go back on just that one item, just to
Yeah.
note the £220 received in from Rushcliffe Borough Councillor Purdue Horan. I did speak with him on this at the end of the year. It was placed into our other promotions budget. So obviously, if the committee are wanting it in that budget, we'll obviously just have a word with him and check that he's happy for it to go towards Christmas fair instead. I think the proviso was that it just got spent on entertainment, which was the original plan for the money. But as long as he's happy with that, I'll move that over into the Christmas fair budget for you all.
Thank you. I think it's important to note that there was the grant support of 220 from Borough Councillor Purdue Horan, and that is just to note. Thank you. Item 10 is to consider supporting flooding response initiatives. I'll just get rid of all those papers.
Councillor Stockwood, I have two comments from residents, if I may.
Yes, please.
The first one is, could the council please, during these uncertain times, remember the victims of Western Avenue and try to ascertain a meeting with Network Rail as soon as possible? We understand that given the current situation, this will not be in the immediate future, but that we wish to be kept informed of any matters arising.
Thank you.
And the second is we were discussing the ownership of the culvert on the rugby pitch. Is it possible for you to find this information on the land registry and ordnance maps? And could you please forward me all correspondence regarding this matter and the issues with Network Rail for my records?
Okay.
So I will seek more clarification in terms of the ownership of the culvert that runs parallel with the rugby club, and I will forward the information with regard to Network Rail, and I may come to the councillors in that respect as well and treat it as a freedom of information request.
Thank you. Well, we have got quite a bit of background of what the NCC and RBC situation is and everything on all these. So, Councillor John Stockwood, would you like to take us through that paper that you...
Right, so thank you very much, Madam Chair. As a parish council, we're not directly involved in providing emergency response services, but there are voluntary schemes that exist for parish councils to contribute to alleviating the impact of an emergency on a local community. The voluntary schemes are the community emergency plans, local resilience stores, flood wardens, and flood signage schemes. Information is available about those schemes from Rushcliffe and Nottinghamshire County Council. Each scheme has guidance available, and one of the things we have been working on is trying to develop a community emergency plan. So that requires that the town council complete the county council template with local information. Another thing we could do is apply for a grant from Rushcliffe Borough Council to purchase useful products to store locally, which would form a local resilience store. Flood wardens and the flood signage scheme are schemes for community volunteers to participate in. It might be the case that council staff can participate in the schemes when they're at work, if it's flooding during the day when they happen to be at work anyway. But it would be about that would be another scheme that we promote to members of the community, saying, you know, would you like to join and support your community by becoming a flood warden. And there's details available about that again at the County Council website. So it is the case that the local MP is arranging a site meeting with Network Rail about the causes of the recent flooding. The cause of the recent flooding was identified in the NCC report on flooding in Bingham in November 2019. They've published that as part of their duty as the local flood response authority. So there's a link there in the paper that I sent out today, but that spells it out that the problem is the Network Rail culvert behind Western Avenue that is the cause of the problems. So one way forward is to note the County Council report on the flooding in Bingham in November 2019. They will, of course, in due course, provide another report on what happened in the spring of 2020. But they've already said what happened in November 2019. We note the MP's intention to meet with Network Rail and actually have that meeting with Network Rail about the causes of the recent flooding, and he said that it would happen as soon as it's practical. We need to get on with getting that community emergency plan template filled with local information as soon as possible. I suggest we apply for a local resilience store grant from Rushcliffe Borough Council and use it to purchase projects to store locally. There comes a point where sandbags are very much in demand. Having some locally would perhaps be helpful, but there are other products that can be helpful in times of flood, and having some locally just makes that point when it's like in emergencies, everybody wants a particular product. In pandemics, it's face masks and hand gel or toilet roll at the beginning, but in flooding, it's some other products relating to sandbags, etc. So having a local store could benefit our local community, and just making some of those products immediately available to the small number of properties that actually struggle with flooding issues within Bingham. Promoting the flood warden scheme, we do promote the tree warden scheme. I think we could also promote the flood warden scheme and the flood signage scheme via the council website, social media and other publications, encouraging the Bingham community to join these schemes, and recommend that the SCAN staff join the flood warden and flood signage schemes so that they can receive the relevant training for use during their hours of work, because flooding can happen at all times of the day. If it's tipping it down with rain, then perhaps they could look out for town council land if they had been involved in these schemes. So I'm suggesting those points. With regards to Western Avenue, additional points raised by the Western Avenue residents, we're happy to keep them informed of what's going on, and we know that the MP is asking to meet with Network Rail, and the report into what went on in November, which is very similar to what happened in spring 2020, is available publicly from the County Council. And that does spell out that it's the culvert in the ownership of Network Rail that is the problem. With regards to the points on next to the fields of the rugby club, that we have the land registry documents in our ownership as a council. It shows that the drain that's a particular, or the grate that's a particular problem. I don't believe it shows that it's on our land. Yeah. There's a question mark over how much work we can do, I think, in terms of investigating other people's property, but it certainly doesn't seem to be our property as far as I'm aware. So, you know, we take on board the points they've raised, but I do think that some of the points I've said already as part of moving actually address their concerns about the cause of the flooding and meeting Network Rail, who own that culvert, which is directly responsible for the water going into the properties on Western Avenue. So I move the points in the paper and give that explanation in support of them. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that, and I'd like to also bring to the committee's attention that the clerk is in the process of arranging a meeting of the emergency response group.
Lovely, thank you.
So hopefully that should be resolved fairly soon.
Yeah, I can say
Can
that.
may I make a comment, please,
Yes.
Madam Chairman?
Yes,
I am aware that there was a subcommittee, an emergency plan subcommittee, established in September of last year, but I understand that that never met, but it's never been dissolved either. I wondered whether that was the emergency plan that was being going to be revived now.
yes. There's not been the opportunity to have the meeting. I know Andrew has tried several dates, but they've not suited everyone. What I've done in the last couple of days is get the link to the County Council pro forma, which actually takes you through what you need to do to get an emergency plan put forward almost immediately. Actually, you don't have to adopt everything in there. It is not. I've been assured it's not mandatory. You do what is needed for your own area. So I'm sure this subcommittee, and the names are known who are on it, will be able to take this forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further comments? No. Well, within Councillor John Stockwood telling us all about that, there were some points to resolve, and I think you've all had them written down. We're noting the NCC report. We're noting the MP's intention to meet with Network Rail, but we resolved to complete the community emergency plan template with local information immediately. Resolved to apply for a local resilience store grant from RBC and use it to purchase some products to store locally. Resolved to promote the flood warden scheme and the flood signage via the council website, social media and other publications, encouraging the Bingham community to join the schemes. And we recommend that the ground staff join the flood warden and flood signage schemes so that they can receive the relevant training for use during their hours of work. And we also need to resolve that we keep locals informed, which the clerk has indicated she's going to do. So all those in favour? Sorry, Joe.
It's okay, Councillor Stockwood. Can I go through the list again then, please? Councillor John Stockwood.
Agree.
Councillor Shelton.
Agree.
Councillor Best.
Agree.
Councillor Stapleton.
Agree.
Councillor Lewis.
Agree.
And Councillor Maureen Stockwood.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone. We've gone through that very succinctly and quickly. And I think I'd like to thank John Stockwood for providing these notes, these background notes, which has explained the situation more fully for us to be able to not have a very long and involved meeting. I shall have to declare the meeting closed at 19:54.
Sorry, Maureen, can I?
We do move now to the confidential business.
Maureen, sorry, can I just ask you to suspend standing orders just for a second? I know I've came to the meeting quite late. Sorry, I'll be really quick.
Okay, come on, quick.
I just wanted to actually ask on the agenda, obviously I've missed the discussion process, but is there something on it about the Silver Surfers?
Yes.
Silver Sunday.
Silver Sunday.
Not
Sorry,
surfers.
yeah. Well, maybe they could try some surfing.
Okay, that's perhaps one event that we can do it to. So we're promoting, we support the Silver Sunday and encourage community to come forward and put on events to keep the old people involved in our community. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so this part of the meeting is finished to resolve that in view of the confidential nature of the business about to be transacted, the press and public be excluded for the remainder of the meeting. Thank you all very
Madam
much.
Chair, we leave this meeting and move to the confidential one.
Yes.
That follows. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
just
Okay.
okay, we finish this one then, don't we?
Yes, please.